Hello, and welcome to the first edition of a new podcast that we're calling CIO Tech Talks. My name is Paul Girard, and I'm a vice president at Hudson Technology. Hudson is a technology-based company that provides technology support to both public sector organizations and our commercial customers in the Canadian market. I've been in the tech industry for all my career, and prior to joining Hudson, I was the CIO at the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, which is a department in the federal government. I joined the department in 2010 and was there until the end of 2022. This experience gave me a lot of insight into some of the great work that's happening in the federal government IT community. So why are we starting a new podcast? It's really to address three different types of listeners. First one is the leaders and employees within government. I want CIOs to come onto the show and share their priorities, their strategies to create a broader awareness across the government. Second area is the vendor community. One of the big things that drove me crazy as a CIO was that vendors would always want to meet with you and ask you the same question. What are your priorities? So giving that consistent message back to the vendor community would be important. And lastly is interested Canadians or international listeners who would want to know more about what's happening in the Government of Canada's tech environment. Those are three different areas. Let's jump into the introduction of our first guest. I thought I would start out with someone that I've known for many years. Philippe Johnston is the CIO for the National Research Council, NRC, in the Government of Canada, and is the president of the CIO Association of Canada. At the NRC, he is leading a digital transformation to enable better innovation for Government of Canada researchers. As the president of the CIO Association, he's leading the growth of the CIO profession across Canada. He's growing its members, the number of chapters, the leadership of the CIO community, and the brand of the CIO within private, not-for-profit, and public sector organizations. Prior to joining the NRC in April of 2021, he managed the IMIT operations for Transport Canada. In this role, he managed over 400 IMIT professionals and a $75 million budget. Philip is an experienced IMIT executive who has been innovating and creating value for organizations for over 20 years and continues to create digital value for organizations to lead them to greater successes. Hi, Phil. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too, Paul.
Maybe just jumping right into it, although I'm somewhat familiar with the NRC, National Research Council, and what it does, our listeners probably aren't. Maybe you can just give us an overview of, what the NRC does, what the size is, scope, geographic locations, that type of thing.
All right. So if you weren't aware of this, the National Research Council has been around for more than 120 years. On Sussex Drive, if you ever go there, there's what's called the Temple of Science, and that was built in the 1919 timeframe. And so it's always been recognized by Canada that research is vital to an economy, vital to a country. And so that's what the NRC is, trying to create world-class research. And world-class research that over the 10 years ago or so is also potentially could be put into the market, and specifically into the market to Canadian companies or startups or what have you. So we are about 2,500 researchers across the country. So from St. John's to Victoria, we have labs that do all sorts of different types of research, from cancer research to astronomy research to photonics research to battery research to automotive research. We're pretty much in just about everything. And a lot of that research ends up getting partnered with other universities or with companies, manufacturers. We're really trying to bridge the gap between research and innovation and getting that into the market. And so the other angle that we do have at the NRC is if you've ever heard about the Industrial Regional Assistance Program, where we have programs in which we try to get startups, new companies funding based on their ideas across Canada. So that's very direct funding in terms of trying to help them set up their own new technologies or innovation, and hopefully they can build that up into a successful company within Canada.
That's amazing. Yeah, if we want to drive innovation, growth, and those go hand in glove, from my perspective in Canada. The NRC obviously plays a big role in that, so it's a very, very important work. That's excellent. Thanks for that answer. Maybe you could just jumping specifically to your organization itself, your IT organization. Maybe you could kind of describe it and same sort of deal, size, scope,
Sure.
budget, maybe. Yeah, sure.
Right. So I have about 250 employees, and they're also, just due to COVID, pretty much across the country. The majority of the staff are here in Ottawa. We have about a $70 million budget. And in terms of the organization, pretty much traditional to what most IT organizations look like, applications, cloud infrastructure, working with Shared Services Canada. So we are a department that obtains services from Shared Services Canada. And so they do all of our networking and infrastructure for the NRC, and that's critical for researchers, by the way, and we'll talk about that a little later. And then the IM team, the information management team, very, very important. I just set up about 7 months ago a data team. We didn't really have a data team when I arrived 2.5 years ago. So now I have a data directorate, which is going to focus on very important things surrounding data for both the researchers and for corporate functions. And as well, because AI is all about data, I've decided to put the AI kind of center of excellence in that team as well. And then an interesting role that we have at the NRC, we are the business owner for the science, the National Science Library. So as we have the most number of publications, and we have had the most number of publications in the GC, we are the owner of that National Science Library. So I also have a team of librarians, and they actually do intelligence and analytics products in terms of doing an overview of certain science areas, like to determine if that's an area where we should be investing in or not investing in. We provide that service to other science departments as well as the actual science library itself. So that's how I would describe my team. I think all, being at the NRC I've never had a library before, and also a national science library. I found that actually quite interesting in terms of a business owner to see how I can improve the delivery of those services for our partners in the GC.
That's fantastic. What a broad scope. Maybe you could just help us understand kind of what your key priorities are over the next couple of years.
So I'm going to provide just three, so that we can keep the conversation flowing. And maybe if you want to focus on any one of those areas, Paul, we can talk about that. The first priority for me is about creating world-class research and enabling that. And I would say that this was the term my president used, and I really like it. And in fact, it was behind me on this one. IT is like the oxygen to research. So right now, the way we're working in terms of delivering those IT infrastructure services, it could be improved drastically. Researchers need access to high performance computing. They create a lot of data. They need access to new software, various software. They need admin rights. So enabling them to get access to all of those things, either on the cloud or through other functions, needs to be a lot quicker and a lot better than what we've been doing in the past. So working with Shared Services Canada, I'm working on developing a better model, service delivery model, to deploy that to the 2,500 researchers. So that's really, really important to me. The second priority for me is, like almost every CIO, it's leveraging our data to improve or leverage AI. So we've started. I'll talk. I think you've got another question later about that. So I'll get into that one a little bit more in terms of what we've been doing. But that's definitely a priority for the organization. And I'll just leave it at that. And then third, I think like everybody, cybersecurity is a huge priority. We've developed a roadmap since I've arrived in terms of the key things that are required for us to keep our environment secure. And we also have a lot of intellectual property at the NRC. So we obviously want to keep those for us. We don't want other countries or organizations stealing that IP from us. So the strategies and the tools, the technologies in order to enable that security are actually, in terms of a challenge that's different from, other CIO jobs that I've had, is that researchers are open by default. Researchers have admin rights by default. Researchers are trying to do things on the cutting edge. So a priority is to ensure that we have the team in place to work with the researchers to be innovative in developing those solutions in real time that are still allowing for both the security and the flexibility of research. So that's a huge priority, at least the third priority that I would say on my list.
Yeah, those are difficult to balance, aren't they? Giving researchers kind of that ability to kind of do whatever they need to do, yet securing the environment such that people who you don't want to access the information can't access it. I know the NRC has had some difficulties with that balance in previous years, I think, before you arrived. Do you want to just talk about that for a second, or is
Yeah.
it,
No. I mean, it was obviously open to the public. And Paul, we worked at an organization that had the same issue 3 years before that.
we aren't going to
And
talk about that though.
but we dealt with
Maybe
it.
another episode.
Yes, but we dealt with that very well. And here at the NRC, it's been I'll just say a little bit more of a struggle just because of that balance that I talked to you about. I think when you just have office workers to deal with, it's much easier. Like it's a simple black or white type issue, but with the researchers, there's a lot of gray.
You mentioned AI and machine learning earlier. Can you just kind of jump into a little more detail around what you're doing in those areas?
Sure. So the hype started, Paul, I think, was it in January or February last year? I think that's when the hype really started, right?
Yeah.
ChatGPT, everything was starting. So at the NRC, I'm actually quite fortunate. Within the NRC in the research areas, we have exceptional researchers who are doing AI, who are doing machine learning. So I actually have access to some of the brightest minds available on that. I have some access to the brightest minds on cyber defense, quantum. So I as a CIO, I've created relationships with those research groups so that I could be learning internally from our experts. And when this started to come out, the chief digital research officer and myself took the lead to provide very quickly advice and guidance on AI and machine learning. And it wasn't, you can't do it. Like I'm not sure what other organizations did, but very quickly within, I'd say a month, we came out with things that were important to us. Not to say no to our employees, but if you are going to use it, here are some of the considerations. And I remember it was very pragmatic. First of all, you can't put classified data or protected data or IP on these systems on the internet. If you're going to use it, realize that some of the responses you're limited to there, and you need to validate, right? You can't just take verbatim what comes out from these systems. We also said that if you're going to use it, then you need to attribute it. Like, for example, if you're going to use it in a research paper, and you need to say obtained by, AI XYZ, and at least state your sources. Uh, and I think that we had a few others. I don't remember them all by heart, but very quickly we put that in place. We sent that out to all of our employees so that they were aware of how to safely use this technology. We actually provided some of this guidance to the Government of Canada CIO as well. And now we've been asked to provide more guidance to parliamentarians on what to do here. So I'm very fortunate because I have the experts here to kind of help me with that. So I'm very excited that we've been able to take it, in 9 months, I guess, from that to where we are today. And I do see the value and the opportunity. I know my daughter uses it for her job. I'm not going to tell you where she works or what she does, but she, as a young person, is using it just about every day to make her ability to deliver more efficient and productive for her organization. So I don't know if that answers that question.
I think it does. Yeah, I think we're just seeing kind of the beginnings of AI and its use and so on. And I like the fact that, you're giving essentially guidelines or rules around how it's going to be used within the NRC and potentially broader within the Government of Canada. So that's great work. Just again, kind of going backwards a little bit, you mentioned cloud and shared services Canada and where you're going there. I don't know if you've made any headway in terms of cloud adoption. And whether you've seen any benefits from it so far. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the operating model, I'm sure many organizations are struggling with the funding of the operating model. We're no different. I think if we had that sorted out, we would probably have a much larger adoption of cloud computing. So we do have a team, and they have done some great work, but it's been very limited in terms of the uptake, due to the fact that I don't have the money, and the researchers themselves would have to take money out of doing research to now put it into funding cloud computing. So I would say that there's a huge opportunity. We have actually partnered with Shared Services Canada, all of the Government of Canada departments that do research. So, agriculture, health, environment, CFIA, DFO, etc. We have decided to, all of us as CIOs together, that it was ridiculous that each one of us would have to stand up our own cloud environments to do exactly the same thing that all of the researchers want to do. So we partnered with Shared Services Canada, who actually delivered 2 key technologies for research. One is a data hub, so an ability to store large sets of data and then apply tools, like whatever tools, analytical, AI, ML, to their data sets. And the other area that Shared Services Canada has been helping us deploy is a cloud sandbox. So you've got a new idea, new research kind of technology that you want to, or new research area sandbox you want to work quickly. We work with them to be able to give the researcher something they can set up within days, I would say, and also the ability for them to bring in external collaborators, whether it's universities or other companies, safely and securely from an identity management and authentication perspective, to bring them into those cloud sandboxes or the data hub. So that was built once for all of the science departments. It's actually working very, very well. And the term I coined when I first arrived, well, it took me about 6 months to term this coin, but it was called research as a service, right? We've heard about infrastructure as a service, software as a service. So the ability for us to use cloud to create that research as a service model is something that we want to move forward with. I think the funding has been my only issue, because we've seen the value, and the researchers have told me how valuable the ability to spin things up quickly, to run an experiment, shut it down, In fact, that's a perfect business model for cloud, where you only want to use it when you're running your experiments. It's a lot cheaper that way than to buy a whole bunch of infrastructure that only gets used, a tenth of the time. So I hope in the years to come, I've got a modernization strategy for how we're going to enable world-class research. One of those is going to include, the ability for us to look for funding for cloud so that we can, deploy that research as a service model.
That's excellent, Phil. Real happy to hear the progress, particularly around SSC and using not only their scale, because there are about 6,000 to 8,000 people within Shared Services Canada, but also using the scale of the Government of Canada, where you've got large, complex research organizations such as yourselves, all collaborating and giving a single voice into Shared Services Canada in terms of what your requirements are. And I'm happy to hear that they actually responded and provided some good results. That's great news, not only for you guys, but for Canadian taxpayers, showing that value can come from that, leveraging that scale, if you will. Okay, so next question, maybe I'll kind of change gears a little bit and look more to the future. So what kind of challenges do you see over the next 2 to 5 years in terms of IT in your organization, or broader for that matter, if you want to expand on it?
No. I think, I'm kind of rehash a little bit of what I said because it's all very relevant. So I'm finding ways now to at least create an AI sort of governance team that's going to be able to look for opportunities, enterprise-wide opportunities that come out of the box from, Copilot, for example, but also other opportunities. So, I think that's an opportunity, not a challenge, because by focusing on that piece, we can improve the way researchers do their work. So efficiencies, the enterprise can do its work. So efficiencies. So I think, at least I'm very fortunate that our president understands that the investments will lead to opportunities. So I think over the next couple of years, that'll be a huge focus. Another focus I talked about was modernization and how we deliver IT services to researchers. The other angle of that is we're creating more and more data within the NRC. So our data gets doubles or triples, et cetera, in terms of the amount of data we can create. In fact, we were very successful last year in obtaining $800 million over the next 8 years to insert and modernize the equipment and the research capital and equipment. And that'll be all digital. That'll be creating a lot more data than we had in the past. So that is a challenge because our current networking infrastructure can't handle it. Our current data centers can't handle all that data. So architecting and investing part of that $800 million into the necessary IT infrastructure that will support that will be another important challenge. And I'll just say those two as being, key things the IT team here at the NRC is going to need to focus on and deliver.
Clearly, you have a big IT organization that supports a large department that's very diverse in terms of its needs and direction and so on. How do you keep those two things in sync? So how do you ensure tight collaboration between your IT organization and other disciplines within the NRC, maybe from a governance perspective?
Okay.
How do you manage that today and any changes coming up in the future?
Right. So I learned this from a very good CIO that I worked for a few years ago. Understand your business and then figure out if you're organized internally to maximize the delivery to that business. When I first arrived 2.5 years ago, we weren't doing that. We were doing a lot of great work, but it was not coordinated. It wasn't marketed, I believe, properly to the VPs or even the DGs across the NRC. They didn't know what we were doing. We also didn't have a service page telling the researchers what we could do for them, et cetera. So governance-wise, we also had no governance. Helpful to maybe those people who are listening, who are struggling internally to get people to listen to them as a CIO or their mandate or what have you. Created what was called an IT committee for the NRC. I got the president to co-chair that so that the president will be aware and also involved, and that will create value for the rest of the VPs. So that meets on a 6-week basis to discuss our, what we're planning to do, whether it's enterprise IT or research IT. To feed that committee from a governance perspective, I set up 3 committees that I co-chair with, 2 of which I co-chair with a chief digital research officer at the NRC. The 2 that I co-chair are the research committee. So what does the researcher committee want from an IT perspective? The other one was the data committee. So again, the chief digital research officer and I co-chair that. What are the data aspect? What are the data? What are the data problems or issues we want to tackle within the NRC? And finally, what most organizations have, they have a corporate back office or enterprise back office. So those 3 committees feed the ITC. But that's not all. Like as a CIO, those committees do help you leverage your plans, get buy-in for the investments you might want to be making, and consolidates that all in terms of a package of all the activities we'd be doing. But not only that, I started semi-annual VP meetings with all the VPs, not just the research VPs. We have about 6 research VPs and then 3 or 4 corporate VPs, where I have now have 2 conversations a year about projects and things we're doing for them. It's also their opportunity to share with me what they want to do in the next year, or in an MC or a memorandum of cabinet for those who are not in government, and also share very specifically what we're doing for them and at the enterprise level. So all of those things have changed the culture. And by the way, we did set up an ex-wiki page with all our services that the researchers can then easily access and leverage. And so there's now been an uptake in terms of people understanding what we can do for them. So all of this put together has put IT at the forefront for the NRC, which, it should have, and it will continue, just because of our mandate and what we need to do with technology. So I would say, for anybody who's in a new organization and you're joining as a senior leader, you need to look at that governance that we just talked about and make it a one that's relevant for your organization. I made this one relevant for mine, and also it allowed me to hire a senior director that was just in charge of research. We didn't have that when I arrived, and that individual is all about driving client service satisfaction for the researchers. So that didn't exist, as well as the data. I just mentioned the data role. So I figured out what it is that we needed to be successful, hired the people, created the governance. And look, it's an always evolving, and I'm the type of person who wants to continually improve. We've done some great things, but there's still a lot more for us to leverage out of those things to improve the way we do research for Canada.
That's excellent. Great work, and congrats on that. Governance is important, getting kind of group involvement, buy-in, all those things, and governance is a form of making that happen. So well done. I want to leverage your CIO role, and you're the national president of CIO Canada. You meet with a lot of CIOs across Canada. I just wanted to get your perspective on some of the biggest challenges CIOs are facing in today's technology-driven business landscape, and how you would address them if you were giving advice.
So I'm going to talk about two things. The first thing is the ability to deliver technology, apps, systems, doesn't matter. Like, to be able to do that very quickly and to do it at speed, to do it at the time that is required. So the AI example I said in my previous conversation about our ability within, 5-7 months to actually deliver something like that's the timing that presidents are expecting. And probably in some industries, it's like 3 months. So how do you set up your IT organization to be able to deliver quality, security, client satisfaction, user experience, all of those things in a tight time frame? So, agile teams, I think you're fully aware of that, Paul. I think you've done a lot of that, product management, but also the ability to implement and integrate that technology. I think more than ever, that continues to be, I think, one of the most, so it's not one single technology disruptor. It's whatever technology that you need to decide upon and make sure it gets delivered in order to make your business successful. The other thing that I'm kind of being a geek on this one, but I've been to a few quantum sessions over the last little while. And some experts say we're 18 months away from quantum being able to, do 2048 decryption. Maybe we're 3 years away. Maybe we're 6 years away. So within the time frame that you've got here, 5 to 10 years, I like to put it into perspective for people who were here during Y2K. Y2K, pretty much every business stopped what they were doing, and they had to address the issue of the changing, rolling over of the date. I see when this happens, when the encryption on our network, and I think about our network devices, like the Cisco switches, the firewalls, etc., all of those network piece of equipment, when it becomes clear that quantum has broken those, then we're going to need to stop everything we're doing. And somehow we're going to need to reimagine and redeploy quantum safe networking. And so that will be extremely disruptive. I'm not sure if I'll still be a CIO by that time or not. But I know I'll be aware as a bystander to see and understand the impact that will have, and it'll be similar to Y2K. Like, I can see the world having to adapt and adopt the new technology to respond to that. So I give people that one just to give people, I give people that example, Paul, just because I think the way I just represented it really brings it home in terms of the impact to us.
Yeah, I think you're going to scare the hell out of our listeners with that one. Nothing's going to be safe.
But you know what? It's kind of like COVID, right? I think it'll be that dramatic. Everyone will have to get together, even like, Y2K. Everyone got together, figured it out, solved it, and we got through it. But what I'm saying is it'll be a huge disruptor, because that will become the primary focus of many, many organizations, and working with the telcos in terms of how to make that happen. So that's why I'm saying what will have a big disruptor or a game changer. I believe that one is probably going to be the most significant one if it happens, where some pundits are saying it will. It's just a matter of time.
Well, this has been extremely informative, Phil. You provided our audience with great insights, and myself. I want to thank you for being my first guest. This was great, and I hope to get you back at some point in the near future.
Thanks, Paul. My pleasure, and I hope your listeners enjoy it as well. I always find learning from others is a number one thing as a CIO. You got to be willing to listen and hear from others. So hopefully that will help some people.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This is great. Thank you so much.
Before we sign off, I'd like to hear from you. If you found this episode informative or otherwise, feel free to hit the like button or provide comments. Also, feel free to share this on your socials. Our next guest will be announced shortly, and the show will be aired in about 2 months from now. So please stay tuned for it. Thanks to all of you for your time, and have a wonderful day.